Hey,
Hey,
welcome everyone, and welcome Daniel. To
welcome, Harrison.
is this our number 5? Is this number 5th Drone Money podcast? Am I right?
Yeah, lucky number 5.
Lucky number 5. Welcome everyone. Today is January 31st, 2023, and today we're gonna be talking about what's going on in this whole surveying industry. But before we do that, I think Daniel, you and I should catch up really quick. How you been, man? How you doing?
I'm staying busy. You know, we've got a lot going on in this day and age in the drone industry, trying to make some drone money.
Make some drone money. Have you been flying? Have you?
Yeah, actually, funny story. What's cool about being in the drone industry now versus, say, 10 years ago is, you don't need like a mega van or, a F-350 full of stuff to go do it. So the last time I flew was last Thursday. I had all the stuff to fly in the trunk of my car before I had a doctor's appointment, and I was there 30 minutes early and the door was locked. So I flew around in the parking lot and did some drone mapping. And crazily enough, a helicopter came in to land behind where my doctor's office was. Did not know there was any kind of landing pad there. It's not on the map.
Yeah, the
and
heli landing zone.
Yeah, so I had to avoid it. Thankfully, it didn't really matter. But you just never know what you're going to find out there. So make sure visual line of sight.
Definitely, man. Like, I've had a few times where like helicopters have been like really, really close to me. It's like those like, huh.
The weirdest one I've had is I was doing a mining site here in Georgia, and you know what a gyrocopter is?
Oh, I do.
Yeah, a bicycle with the helicopter on top. Some guy was, I could have thrown a baseball and hit this guy in the face. Like he was that close. And he just like kept flying around. I was doing photogrammetry on a mine, and I was just like, what am I supposed to do? I just had to wait for like 30 minutes for him to leave.
That's the only thing you can do. You just gotta wait. I've had when I was flying those fixed wings. Actually, I found a bunch of my old videos.
I saw some. You're good.
Yeah, I posted this one up on YouTube Reels. It's just the drone taking off. I put my phone underneath it. But yeah, because like whenever I got going, I was flying. These are like 15-foot wingspan, vertical takeoff and landing. And we were over in Mexico mapping out just these huge cities. Like the biggest map we made was 800 square kilometers on, which is massive photogrammetry. Yeah. And I had this one day, this airplane, literally, it's like a Cessna. It was following around the drone. And I was flying at 1,500 feet. This is high. It was all, we had like government regulate waivers and all this stuff. Right. And this damn airplane kept dive bombing the drone, going underneath the drone and then pulling up and going around. Yeah, it was terrifying. But
some people just have no common sense. We learned that in all industries, right?
Oh yeah, that's very true.
But what I want to do in an airplane is chase another thing that I don't know what it's going to do.
And it's on our responsibility, right? We have to be the best upkeepers, the stewards of the rules. And we're the newcomers. We're the newcomers, so we got to be the stewards of the rules, set the path, blaze the path. I don't mean me and you. I just mean drone pilots. And
there's a lot on my shoulders there for a minute. I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Walmart greeter is looking pretty nice right now. Just kidding.
Well, I think that's a nice segue to kind of touching back on a topic that we talked about last week, which was this ROCK Base, which we launched last week. And I kind of want to talk to the community about this for a second, let everyone know what's going on and what happened and how we've been receiving response to this. So if you guys watch the video on YouTube, or if you were in here last week, we talked about this new little device here. This is basically a GNSS base station, ROCK Base. And what it's meant to do is you install this at a fixed location. It's got an antenna and a little mounting pole, and you leave that up there always. And then you're just contributing base station data into a network of a bunch of base stations. And so now you can log into it and use it in RTK. And then what we're putting out there is a PPK version. So just imagine a future where like you can go out and fly your, Phantom 4 RTK or your Mavic 3 Enterprise RTK, and you don't have to have a base station. And you can just use this network base stations. Yes, it exists in some places. A lot of places it doesn't. And even in the places it does exist, oftentimes people don't use it because you're too far away from one of these nodes or something's wrong. So yeah, what we did after we launched it, we just launched another version. So there's now 2 versions of this. One of them, you can buy it, install it, and you get one free user into the network. So the way people are using this, like Daniel, you actually just went out and you've been using it.
Yeah, I used it Friday. It worked great. I used it side by side with the network here, the private network here in Georgia. And I was a good bit away. Of course, I'm getting my base station this week, so mine's not set up yet. So I
But
was
we had one in Atlanta
right.
downtown.
Yeah. There's a few now, I think.
Yep.
And so I went to the closest one to me, and I was still a good ways away. I wanted to see, like, is it really going to work when I get that far out?
Yeah.
Be like healthy skeptical of it. And soon enough, about as soon as I turned the dang inlet on and connected to the internet, it was like, fix.
Yeah,
I'm like,
that's been my experience too. It's
What?
been like, yeah, it's been faster.
Yeah.
Like whenever I use the inlet with it, like it's like the data is so good from this thing
Yeah.
that it makes my inlet better now. And
Yeah.
so that's
I
been
checked into a control point on a mag nail in a parking lot, and it was within tolerance for sure. And I was really far off the baseline.
oh, weren't you
So
like
it was
no,
like
weren't you
60 kilometers.
you're 60 kilometers away.
Yeah.
Exactly. Not
59
really
and a
far.
half. Yeah. So
Really
it wasn't
far.
like I was close. Yeah. I
Then
wanted to
you
get
went
as close as
like
I
90
could.
kilometers away and tried it too. But
Yeah, I did it in my yard. It was 90 kilometers away, and about, what was it, like a few seconds to get a fix, and
yeah,
residuals were about an inch. But if I'm 90
I
kilometers away, I can't
honestly
at all.
talk about the conversation today,
Yeah,
the state of the industry of surveying.
yeah,
I still at 90 that's too far away,
yeah. Oh, it's too far away.
The
Yeah,
rule
but
of thumb, I still go by this like 2 parts in a million. So like
yeah,
every 10 kilometers you're losing. But honestly, that's such an old rule of thumb now. So the basically used to be a rule of thumb that every
yeah,
like 2 parts in a million. So every 10 kilometers you'd be 2 centimeters off. I do it
mhm,
in centimeters of kilometers because base 10
yeah,
easier, 2 parts in a
yeah,
million. But that was like a rule whenever we had like 8 satellites you were looking at. But now, like I think the average one of these is seeing like 36 satellites. And then
yeah.
also another interesting fact, I just learned this because we're seeing these show up on different parts of the world. Even though the US made GPS, guys, we don't get the best satellite coverage. Like,
Makes a lot of
right?
sense.
So people in Australia and people like in like Japan, like Southeast Asia, like this part of the world,
Mhm.
they're actually regularly seeing like almost 50 satellites. Yeah.
Well, you know what? I bet if it's a military purpose, we want to track at other places better.
Neighboring this region, you might say.
Yeah. Yeah, let's just say we want the things to hit their target. We're not so
Hmm.
worried about here on the state side.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's
Yeah.
interesting. Well, the more you know, knowledge is
Yeah,
power.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Next time I go to Mongolia, I'm bringing my GPS.
Yeah, I mean, I did some jobs I was in Papua New Guinea doing some LiDAR missions several years ago, and I remember I got way more satellites there. I thought my base station was actually broken. I was like, something's wrong here. Like, why is it? It was like astronomically higher than what I get in the US.
Yeah.
But so yeah. Anyways, yeah, we released like a second version of this, so that way people can just use the RTK network. And then there's another just RTK subscription. So we're starting at $40 a month. That's like your one-off. $40 a month for access into the network. You have the RTK edition of the base. So if you buy one of these, install one, you're helping contribute to the network. We're going to give you access to that. And then there's the miner edition where it's actually, this is the crypto miner. So you can not even be part of this whole discussion of the miner part and just be using the network. And that's all good and dandy. So we have the RTK edition, network access, and the miner edition.
Mhm.
And then Daniel, you and I have been having a lot of conversations this week. I mean, we've already sold a bunch of them, which is awesome.
Oh,
But the
yeah.
conversations that we're having is like people that are doing construction and like doing these like, I'm going to build a skyscraper. I'm going to build, a Walmart, and I need to
Yeah.
have a reference station. So instead of like installing, or just some people are taking like an expensive one, like a Trimble, and they'll put it
Mhm.
out on the job site and then they'll move it back every night or something, because they don't want to get stolen.
Right.
Um, Instead of that, just putting up one of these, it's $700 and it's better. It's working. I mean, the quality of the hardware in here is insane. So like, it's just changing the discussion. So I think a lot of people are going to be using it on the construction sites. That's where we're seeing the biggest pull, right?
Right. Yeah, I think that's going to keep going on that trend just as more construction jobs are, because you're kind of seeing the final push in the construction sector of the mom and pop customers that are going from no GPS control to just kind of the old way of doing things. That's kind of fading out, for once
Mhm.
and for all. So this is kind of helping push people over the last final hurdle, because it's not $20,000, to do that. It's just, okay, well, it's less than buying a tire for one of my pieces of equipment, or you like
Well,
a new piece of track.
no, you said the other day it's the same price as buying one battery for the
Yeah,
M300.
Same as buying one M300 battery, same exact amount of money.
One battery.
And you have 8 at a time. So
right. That's why, because we had that one meeting. I just told the guy, he's like, well, after like 3 years, we're gonna move it. I was like, we want it to be static always, but if you must move it, 3 years, sure. Whatever. Yeah, that's what I said. So just throw it away. Just get a new one, but eco-friendly. Don't waste, guys. But
use it as an ornament.
Don't waste the base. But I think this ties us into a little bit about the state of the surveying. So this is, one piece of this is the technology. So today on the Drone Money podcast, we're going to talk about the state of the surveying industry, and we're going to talk about basically the technology, how the technology has changed, and what's evolved over the past 20 years ish. And we can probably touch even further back that with our guest today, who's been in the industry for how long, Daniel? Or a
long time.
A long time. Okay, we'll talk more about that. So we'll
talk
a little bit about
sound old. That would be wrong.
I'm technology, and then really the interesting thing. So I think tech stuff is always interesting. People always get jazzed on it, but there's this underlying other piece, which is the personnel and the manpower behind the industry. And so just talking about the changes in that and how that's been affecting businesses and how to get work and execute on work. I think it's there's some you told me some numbers the other day I think are very fascinating.
I saw that about it was surveyors in Florida.
Surveyors in Florida.
Using round numbers, and again, fact check me if I'm wrong. Everything on the internet you read is true. But
ask ChatGPT.
Ask ChatGPT. I'm sure it will get it right.
But you said in Florida, so you're talking about in Florida. You're just pulling up surveyor numbers.
Total licensed surveyors and mappers, maybe a little bit more. But it was, I think, only maybe 100 and something were women. 180 or 190 of them were under 40, and there was like 1,200 of them were 60 or older.
Yeah, so that's
the huge percentage. 3/4 of the entire state's registered professionals.
Well, what is this going to do? Like, what's that mean for the industry?
It's not good.
Yeah.
You got to think about, I could see, and, we can talk about this in a little bit too, but, I could see of industries that lack, registered professionals that they need as a signatory and all this stuff. And as a supervisor, I could see some conglomeration, little mom and pop things, the one-man surveyor shop, those maybe go away, or that turns into, some company buys them just to employ the person with the stamp. There's a lot of different business strategies you have to employ to make sure, because at the end of the day, we want to make sure this is done right.
It's done right, and the amount of work is constant, if not growing.
Right. It's not going down. The significant downturn of all surveying, of course, is 2008 recession, which had ripple effects until now, which is part of the reason we're dealing with this. But also you've got, a new generation of people, which is always something people talk about, but, they're interested in different things. So they may be interested in working outside all the time, but not necessarily in the woods with a machete. They may want to do conservation work and work for the Forest Service. Like, there's not a problem with hard work. It's what are we doing? And also, are our methods up to date? And what are we doing to make sure that everybody's doing the best job that they can do? Because ultimately, these are super skilled people that have to do all kinds of stuff. You have to know how to research stuff from George Washington time to now. And, you get out there and, you're in the middle of everything, and the weather, the heat, the cold, and they're doing everything that they can do to get their job done. And there's less and less people to do that. So how do we overcome that?
Right. So looking at those field notes, bringing that to, so you're doing some research, and there's, I think that's a big problem. And really, technology that's a lot of overcoming pieces of this, but it's not the only answer. Like, I don't think we're not going to tech ourselves out of this one.
No, it's like a cafeteria solution, right? You got to do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Technology is super important. It's just like when I talk about people using drones, on whether it's surveying or any other thing. Like, I'm not going to solve 100% of your problems with a drone flight, but if I can give you 40% less work or 60% less work, it doesn't matter what job you do. If I can say, hey, by the way, we can take this off your plate. Usually people are doing more than 100% worth of a full-time equivalent job work anyway.
Right.
So if you're doing 120% of what you're supposed to be doing, if I take 40% away, then you get that 20% time back, right? That Google talks about, like, where you can actually think about, how do I make our business make more money? How do I move up? How do I do, instead of just drowning all the time? Nobody wants to feel like that.
Right. Well, it's also not just surveying; it's every industry, right?
It's
Every
industry,
industry
yeah,
is like
exactly.
we're adding so many tools to make things efficient and up the
Mhm,
productivity of a single person. So it's just like whether you're in a marketing agency or you're in a
mhm.
surveying firm, everyone's kind of dealing with the same thing.
Right.
And so let's jump over really quick. So let's talk a little bit about just like surveying as it pertains to the equipment and like the technology of surveying, and
Mm,
then let's bring on our guest after that and then talk about some of his experiences with this as well as how he's dealing with the personnel shortage. So I guess
right.
the thing that I really enjoy about surveying, and I'm a huge geek, so I really like geek on this stuff.
It's a positive
And
thing. Say it in a positive tone.
nerd, I don't know, geek or nerd, which one's the
As a enthusiast, I think, is the
I'm an
political.
enthusiast. Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
But I my background's in physics, right? So
yeah.
I
Nerd.
actually have a degree in math. I have a degree in physics, and I
Yeah.
went for my PhD in physics. So like going into the whole like the history of how people determined location. And like so the original like we always talk about like our what three of the four people on
My Alexa's talking.
yeah, basically, so three of the four people on Mount Rushmore, right? They're surveyors, right? So the original like surveyors were like kind of like the frontiersmen, the
Oh,
heroes,
yeah.
and I really this is something that really excites me when you talk about like how
Yeah.
are people accurately mapping, doing the first leveling missions, the great, basically they were when they were first building like the topography of like so say the United States, they were
Mm,
literally building towers out of wood on top of hilltops and then doing a leveling, a bubble level to
mm,
another tower that they would go and build. And they were literally just doing this and calculating the vertical difference and using chains in order to measure a distance to that next one. And so like by just taking these accurate measurements and then calculating the angles as well as the level and then the distance, you're just
mhm,
using trigonometry and geometry to
mhm.
slowly build out these maps. And like just to think like I this is what gets me excited about surveying and surveyors. Like just to think like, could you imagine being like, all right, honey, I'll be back in 4 years, maybe,
If I live,
if I live.
yeah, like you gotta check your will before you go to work every day.
Right, but
Like,
that is the history that all this was
yeah.
built on, and like the modern day surveyor then comes in, then we have like GPS and robotics, robotic total stations,
Mm,
and then now, so this comes in now. All of a sudden, you can find a location, a point using satellites. And before this, there was like very large baseline. So this we had some like point to point measurement sources using radio.
mhm,
So there was like techniques you can use on the ground from one device to another device to like basically measured distances really accurately. And
mhm.
so, but no, like the average surveyor didn't have access to this stuff. This was like,
Right,
USGS would do it for like mountain
got it.
peaks or
Large
something.
scale projects.
Yeah.
Well,
Like,
and maybe our guest Tim, he might have even taught me this. I don't remember. But you think about like back in the day, a survey party. Like
oh,
now,
yeah.
when you talk about party chief, now it might be like a lot of people run one man crews, but you might two man, maybe three, and then you got to hustle, make sure you meet your budget deadline. But
Oh,
you got like 20 guys. Like
right.
that's a real party chief. I can't. You just think about the HR issue. Thankfully, there was no HR back then. The HR issues of 20 surveyors at a time, right? For the people watching, I'm sure they can imagine what that would be like. It'd
I,
be a fun time, I'm sure. But
I just like impressing like to me, it's like the importance of like, what are we talking about with surveying and where does it come from? And
yeah,
like the real geodesy of it. And like, this is so exciting to me. And then like, just the, when you think about what you're doing, and like how the people that came before you to do this technology were there and how they had to do it, and now what you're doing is you're all surveying, we're building on top of what someone else did in the past. So whether you're
yeah.
looking at boundaries and you're trying to like read someone's notes about where the property lines are, there
Mhm.
was someone else with another technology doing something else in the same location you were, and now you got to match what your technology is doing with that. And then now we're using even more stuff, so
Yeah,
GPS total stations, and now we have drones, and now we're talking about flying freaking robots shooting lasers out of them using cloud
right,
computing and
right.
AI, right?
I mean, it's like surveying's in the Bible. Like it's been around,
Yeah.
right? And so, we go through this whole time where, we're continually changing these methods, But I love the surveying phrase, you're following in the footsteps, right? There's always been somebody before you, basically, as long as anybody can remember. But the methods are adapted to do a better job and a more complete job. And that's what's awesome about it, because it's always around.
How many of these how much of this is Tim about to come on here and just totally slap us down and correct us on everything?
I quit. I'm not talking to you guys anymore. You don't know what I'm saying. That's right. Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's bring him on.
Let's do it live.
Ladies and gentlemen.
There's Tim.
Hey there, guys. How's it going?
Tim from Moorbass.
Yep.
How are you doing today?
Doing pretty good.
Welcome on to the podcast. I think you were listening in on some of the conversation we were having, and hopefully we weren't, doing too disservice to your life's work.
No, not at all.
All right, wonderful. Well, so Tim, you work at Moorbass currently, and you're joining us here on the live stream. Could you do a little introduction for yourself to the audience today?
Well, I'm Tim Worley.
Hi.
I'm the survey manager in our McDonough office here at Moorbass. I've been surveying, gosh, I don't want to say exactly how long, but it's been a long time. It's the only thing I've ever done. Yeah. So I started when I was
doing a good job.
Yeah, so it's been over 30 years now.
Really, Tim?
Yeah, and it has changed. I started with a really small company that was not technology forward. So I have seen it change a lot in just my lifetime. So
30, rewind us back to 30 years ago. So 30 years ago, first of all, what was going on in your head? Who convinced you to get into this darn thing? And what was your experience like getting into surveying 30 years ago? I'm very interested.
It was something I could do to be outside. A friend of my dad's was a surveyor, and so started off as a summer job, and then I just went from there.
Wow.
I liked it, and I picked it up quick, so it just
if you started in the summer and stuck with it, then you must have really liked it.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
Hard season to keep somebody in Georgia.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe so you're in Georgia, right? So that's
yeah,
it's very hot in the summer. Humid.
It's a good 110 degrees. What was it when you came for the demo day? Wasn't it 105 degrees with like 80% humidity?
Harrison? Oh yeah, it was so hot. Yeah. So you got back into it. You got into it and started a summer gig, and this got the itch going. I guess at the time this was like a really good trade. When you're looking at like a trade school, like going into something that you can get good at. That's kind of what was presented to you at the time, right?
Yeah, it was. It was like I said, it was something that kind of meshed, some technology stuff with being able to work outside and work with your hands.
Right.
It wasn't just all manual labor type stuff. There was some thought involved in what you were doing. So
a lot of thought.
And even back then, I can remember surveying was taught at technical schools. There were a few around the state that had survey programs. So it was not as many now, but that's
I think the education for surveying is like, I don't know, it's just for me, like, learning about surveying just from an outsider's perspective at first, it was very difficult unless you have someone that already is in it, already knows, kind of show you the ropes. I guess in your case, show you the chains.
Yeah. We actually did.
Yeah.
It was almost a joke. We did. So the guys I worked for were both older fellas, and they did. We had a chain, and I had to learn how to throw the chain, how to roll the chain. So it was, I don't know that it's something to be proud of, but it's just something.
It got you where you are today.
Yeah. So I mean, basically, so the chain was used for your distances, right? So you would pull that out, and it would hold it taut, and you'd mark that, and then just keep going, right?
Oh yeah. And the total station, they were theodolites, transits.
Yeah,
they didn't have any electronics on them, so they were all. You had to, if it was dark outside, you couldn't work it in the evenings because it would get so dark you couldn't read the vernier. So.
Yeah. So you're in theodolite. You were physically had your field notebook out there, writing down every degree, manually calculating. everything, right?
Absolutely.
And Tim, like one thing that's interesting to me is, when I started doing surveying from engineering and environmental science background, it was like a lot different just from the licensure aspect of things.
Mhm.
So like when you started back then versus now, it'd be interesting if you could talk about like I went to college and did all this stuff, and then when you go look at it, and it's like, oh, well, actually, you don't have the right kind of degree, and then you'd have to be an LSIT for so long. Like, how was it back then versus now? I don't know if it's that different, but I know a lot of people got grandfathered in before, for degree requirement states like Florida or whatever it might be. But what was it like back then as far as like a career path versus now? Is it like more restrictive, or can you talk about that?
I think even back then there was an educational requirement for it. There
Mhm.
was a time, piece to it that you had to work in the responsible charge,
Right.
they call. But I can't remember when exactly it changed over from, just having years of experience to having to have that educational requirement. But I know for me, it was a requirement when I got mine.
And did you go to a 4-year university or a 2-year, or what's
I kind of did a combination. I started out in a tech school actually, and then the program kind of went away, and I picked up at another university, and then wound up actually completing the education requirement at a different place. So it took a long time for me. I felt like I needed to have the experience, before I got to the point of attaining the license.
Right.
Doesn't seem like it really because you're committed to this path. You went down this path, so it seems like it all worked out great either way. Whether you just went to school the whole time, then started.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, I did. I went.
You were making money, Tim.
Yeah. So.
Oh man, that's cool. Yeah. So I think it's awesome to think about, where let me not get lost in the video, but like where you've come from to now. And are you seeing, like, what are you seeing now in the industry, like as far as, workforce attributes or things you look for? Do you think it's different from back then? I know everybody always wants to be like these whippersnappers.
Well, I think this is a good point, Tim, because Daniel already made some bold statements about Florida.
Yeah.
Are you seeing this? Is this
it's the same thing in Georgia? I think a lot
Okay.
of states have that same issue. It's harder to attract younger people into the profession. We actually have our surveying and mapping society here in Georgia does like they have scholarships that they give away and things. So they're involved trying to recruit those younger people into the industry.
And what was there, maybe 1 or 2 college programs for surveying at Kennesaw State and somebody else? Or
There's
North
starting
Georgia?
to be some more. I think I saw Georgia Southern, maybe North Georgia College. Some people having some programs now.
But it's kind of one of the things where you got to know before you go, because you may not like fall into it. If you're going to, the charter school of the whole, state, UGA, go Dogs, by the way. But if you run into that situation where you're like, hey, I've heard about surveying, you might be 3 years into a degree and then you don't even know it's there. So there's some challenges of getting people into the industry, on the right time or in the right path. Like, so the scholarship thing is great. You're getting people in from high school that are they trying to decide like, oh, do I want to do civil engineering? Well, like there's way more opportunity in surveying and there's still a lot of opportunity in civil engineering. And you're really kind of working on the same stuff. They may not know it exists. So, are you seeing people starting to find it a little bit more? Or no?
It's hard to recruit people now.
Yeah.
One thing that does help though is for us, we are kind of pushing technology. So younger kids, they can, they take to that a little better. I can bring a guy in, a younger kid can come in and pick up a data collector and kind of work through it. Most of them are Windows or Android operating systems. So they they feel familiar to them. So they can go through it. They they pick it up pretty fast. They may not know what they're doing with it, but they can navigate through the software.
So you don't really have the barrier of like learning how to use the actual, stuff you're doing for your job. It's just more like understanding the why.
Yes.
And the how. Oh, gotcha.
It also, it sounds like to me, because like Tim, you said before, used to be another firm that wasn't very technology forward. Now you are at a firm that's very technology forward. And so if, this younger generation, which I'm a part of, and I totally agree, technology is like, I enjoy the technology side of things. So like to attract someone, like if that's the difference, so it's not just about, hey, this technology is making my job easier, faster, but also it's helping me get people too. It sounds like that's a critical, pretty important for a firm to be thinking about, as they look at recruiting and keeping their business alive and strong.
It is. And a lot of younger people, this is not an instant, reward or satisfaction type industry. It's something you got to be in for a while before you got to learn the ropes, so it's hard to blend the old school and the new school, right? So I will push technology every day, all day long, but I still rely on some things that are old school, like field notes and things like that. I want my guys to keep field notes, because a lot of times they're my eyes out in the field. So, but note taking seems so foreign to a younger kid. They're used to text and email and apps that do that
What's
stuff.
this thing?
Yeah,
it's an artifact that I've found.
That is a challenge.
Yeah,
I have a notebook that.
Yeah. See, I've got one. Yeah, there we go.
Yep.
Honestly, Tim, is there some way we can take field notes by just scrolling on TikTok?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's not a problem at all, is it, Tim? Sitting on their phones.
Oh, I bet you. Yeah, I bet you. Yeah, people out in the field are probably on their phone all the time.
Oh no, not there.
Yeah,
not there. Yeah, but I mean, you think about it's also something cool. I think about I'll say the Gen Z generation, since now I can be one generation ahead of the youngest people, is when they look at a problem, they go, "Oh, we could do that better." And they'll actually say that. Now, sometimes you kind of go, "Oh, what are you doing?" But if they see like, "Hey, why are we doing?" And I've just in conversations with people here and in my previous jobs, as these people coming up, they'll go, "Well, why are we doing it that way? Can we do that a little bit better?" And it's not in a disrespectful way. It's like, well, why? Like they value their time in a way to like more of a point than like maybe I would. If I walk into Tim's office and he's like, "Go do this," I'll probably be like, "Yes, okay." That's what I'm going to go do. And then I'll try to do it as good as I can and, be the best millennial and make everybody happy and then get a puppy, but like those kind of people might go, well, like, why? But they're not doing that in a disrespectful way, which is interesting to me. It's like, well, can we do this better? Because they've seen that like that kind of thing through their life has happened so many different other ways.
Yeah, I think there's definitely that. And like, obviously we experienced, 2008 and some big financial, crises in our country and, around the world right now. It's a hypothetical recession or maybe a recession. I don't know. But all I know is prices seem to go up a little bit. But no, I think there's a lot to be said about just the getting people into an industry that is, pays, is needed and stable. It's something you can't outsource. I can't, Tim, I can't outsource you to China.
Mm-hmm.
Your job is stable. It's because you physically need to be here on that ground right here. And so there's nothing like, it's a very actual, it's one of those industries that doesn't get like, so when I went to college, no one talked about surveying as a career path. I never heard it once.
I didn't either.
I started out in engineering and then I got into math and physics. And so I was in the sciences. I was in the engineering. I was, a lot of friends were civil engineers, and it was like surveying was something inside the civil engineering department that maybe some people did that I didn't realize somehow. Like it was, but it's like one of those industries that like it's needed, and it's needed today. It's needed tomorrow. I can predict out 100 years. It's still going to be needed. And, it's a secure path to get into. And so like, I don't know, there's not many industries that you can say that about today.
No. Yeah. Not even working at Google or Facebook.
Yeah, I know. I hope Google, my friend is hoping every day doesn't get fired right now. I have a bunch of friends that work at Google, so
I know it. Wait. Oh, so Tim, one thing, we obviously talk about drones a lot on the Drone Money podcast. Can you talk a little bit about how you're using? I mean, I know, but just asking, like, how do you use them? Like
Asking for a friend.
asking for Harrison, right?
I hear you.
So can you just talk a little, just broadly of like, what role does it play? I mean, is it something you think about every day, every week? Like, how does it impact you? Does it make your life easier? That kind of stuff.
Well, we analyze every project we do to see if it's a fit. So there's certain criteria, obviously airspace and things of that nature that say whether or not we can fly a drone. And then the type of project, what it is, what our end product is going to be. And we just analyze it and say, are we going to fly this? I would say we try to at least fly for photography purposes, most things that we do. And then LiDAR comes in, if we're running topo, it, we use it. It's just a tool that we use, just like a total station or GPS. So it's something that we look at, and then we decide, is it a yay or nay? And then we go at it.
I think it's interesting that it's, like you said, it's just a tool. And I think that's what Daniel started out today on the podcast saying, just a tool that he had in his car, and he was just doing some flying last Thursday. But like, just hearing you say those words right there, for me, from the drone industry side, 5-6 years ago, nobody was even, no surveyor was really thinking about this. But now it's to the point. So it's like, if you look at the cycle of like this thing, now you're saying it's just a tool. So you're like, hey, I don't want like, you want to have a whole podcast about the hammer I use? Like, just a hammer, man.
Yeah, it must be a great hammer.
Yeah, no, but seriously, like, I think that's we're living through another change. Is what I'm highlighting, is that whether it was the robotic total station now that everyone uses, I'm sure that was a change too. That there were some people out there saying these things are great. Then 5 years later, now some surveying firms are saying it's just a tool. Now everyone uses it.
It's just normal.
Do you see, like, I know you're personal, like you're saying that you evaluate. Do you see this as just another tool it's here to stay? It's not, you guys aren't getting rid of the drone anytime soon. Yeah,
absolutely, it's here to stay. It does, I want to say that we use it. Not everything we do is just so we can do something quicker. Sometimes the data is better, it's richer, we have more of it. We can, the QA QC process with LiDAR and photogrammetry, we're able to see what we're looking at. When I have to, when we send a crew out to locate something, we rely on that crew to bring us back the data we need. And when we do LiDAR and photogrammetry, we kind of mine that data out that we need from a whole lot of other data. So we don't just have a X amount of data, we have X times 100 a million, so it is, like I said, it's not just that it's faster, it can be a, more accurate, a better product at the end. But it does take some, the QA QC process we go through is extensive, and we spend a lot of time checking, a lot of time, locating places that we are not sure about. They may check, they may be okay, but we're still like, it's too much canopy, it's too much undergrowth, we're still going to have to get in there with the traditional methods.
Yeah, and how has that changed, those traditional methods now? So like, so Dan and I talk about this all the time. Like, obviously you got to look at the data set when you're done, and you got to verify, like, hey, does that look right, or like, do I have the points there to be drawing that conclusion? But then you send out, a guy into the field and say, hey, I just need you to grab these 3 areas now. And so, like, I think on the speed side, like, that's that huge bump in speed. But then, like you're saying, just having that, that full dictionary of information of that job site, it sounds like even as a surveyor, I would feel like maybe I'll put it this way. I feel like I might develop some trust issues hiring a bunch of people and putting my license on the line with this guy going out, writing down field notes.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've been burnt once or twice in the, your time span. Naturally, is going to happen to everyone. But now having this tool that probably makes you, as the lead over here, feel much more confident and comfortable in the process.
No, it does. I like it, and be able to see what I'm working with. you know, but it, like you said, it's just something that we use, and we subsidize the data with traditional methods,
Mhm.
you know, and it is what it is.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I always talk about, Tim, whether you're doing the best, it doesn't matter what kind of equipment you have. It doesn't matter what you're doing, your flight parameters, doesn't matter. The drone is not going to like kick the Dairy Queen bag out of the ditch where the pipe is. Like, it's just not going to happen.
Right.
But if all I'm doing is kind of doing that kind of stuff and then filling in what I need, it's making my life a lot better. Because I mean, there's no issue with some of the stuff, but at the end of the day, no matter what method you're using to capture stuff, you're going to check it.
Mhm.
I mean, I get a lot of people that talk to me, the surveyors, that say, I'm not using this thing because I can't check it. I'm like, well, yes, you can. How do you check your shots from the field guys now? You weren't standing there.
Sure.
Like, we make sure that it's right. Like, you have ways to check it, and there's ways to check it regardless of if you're using this or whatever else. It's just another thing that you've got.
You have to have a protocol. So
Yep.
an operating procedure that says, we're going to locate, we still locate most of our hard surfaces.
Mhm.
And then, our guys will go through and look for creeks,
Yeah.
lowland, any standing water, stuff like that. We're looking for that stuff on the site and getting our guys in there to locate that stuff.
Mhm.
And after a little while, they start to recognize, they're like, the drone, there's no way it's going to get this. So we're going to locate it. They start to think on how that works. So,
well, that's awesome. I mean, that's like a key point of having a good system is knowing, whatever I'm doing, whatever method I'm doing, what's the limitation of that and how do I supplement it? Instead of redoing the whole thing, I don't go, oh, well, we can't use any of this. It's like, okay, no, we're good. We're just gonna, we had 2 weeks to do this, and now it's only going to take us 6 days instead of 14.
right.
Like, that's fine. That's a win for me.
So Tim, I want to pitch you a little bit of what I think the future looks like, and then I want you to tell me what you think, and maybe we can just do a real time feedback session here too.
Sure.
If I say something that's wrong, just correct me. Like, how the hell ever happened? Get out of here.
And please only just say no. Don't tell them why.
No,
I'm just kidding.
no explanation.
Yeah.
So at ROCK, like what we're trying to do, and like what I think like the future really looks like, is so I believe in like a connected future. So like whether it's your field notes, your RTK rover, this RTK network, the your base station, the LiDAR, whether it's the SLAM, the photogrammetry. So all these technologies that you're using to gather information, to have the person in the field, the person in the office, all the data synced at the same time immediately. So you can actually, someone can be out in the field and you'll see the data populating in real time into your project. And then you can, be working in this connected environment and having like this one platform to do all of your work from. And so building the hardware that connects into it, building the software that is out in the field is also on the desktop in your house or your office, just this one connected environment. And like, I think like that is going to help with not just internally with like, your own surveying practice, but also as you're, talking to the GCs, general contractor, and them having, or people doing earthwork, and everyone sharing this one data source. So that the way the person doing grade can communicate with the surveyor and see all that data in real time. The people doing, the actual construction progress monitoring and looking at BIM or going from the real world to their civil, their CAD. So there's pieces of it that exist today. And I see a lot of it in the the BIM side. This has a lot of energy behind it. But I think on the surveying side, there are some pieces of it, but I don't see it really coalescing together yet. It seems like every surveyor I talk to, they're like, I got this software to do this thing, I got this collector for this RTK receiver, I got this total station, we got got this LiDAR, I got this drone, I got this autopilot. Like everything is so like you're an octopus juggling so many things. And to me, I see, if we can, and I'm plugging like what we're doing at ROCK, but also I think this is the natural evolution either way. If you can provide the high quality equipment with the workflow that brings it all together, makes it simple, then now you can, leverage your workforce on the field better. You can, efficiently, organize all your data, keep it, as a single project. I don't know. So this is my prediction of the future. And then obviously price is just going to go down unilaterally on everything because that's just the natural way of hardware. But this is how I see like the software interacting with the hardware. And obviously we're building this RTK network now too. So we're trying to basically build out this network of corrections that all of our products can use in the future. And this is kind of the one of the backbones that we're trying to build out right now. Yeah, what do you think about all that? Complete nonsense, or?
No, I think that's definitely the way it's going. There's already some field collection softwares out there that are real time.
Yeah.
Update. You can watch the points being collected, and even the crews can see. So you got two crews working on the same site; they can see each other's data.
Right.
There's some stuff with that. I think the biggest hurdle is the industry as a whole getting up to the same technology level. So, I mean, we still get requests to save files back to, pre-2010 formatted files for some people, because that's where they're at, So I think at some point there will be a crossover and everybody will be closer to the same plane. And at that point, then, all the softwares can be working towards doing the same thing.
Yep.
So yeah, I see that.
Cool. I think that's why we're trying to like stay pretty tightly coupled with the hardware. So that's why we're trying to release hardware that works with all the software at the same time. So we're seeing it's like it's kind of hard to convince someone who's using another piece of hardware to try something new. But if you have this whole workflow and a training program, then you can kind of win over their minds and hearts and souls one surveying firm at a time.
Yeah. Well, and it's good too when you kind of do it across the board, because then it's like, okay, I've learned everything I need to know. I'm done.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, I'm going to do this for as long as I need to, and then the next time I need it, I'm kind of going to do the same thing, and then I'm going to learn everything I need, and then I'm done. And Tim, it's funny you said that. I had to help somebody recently, and it wasn't so somebody that I was working with had a request from someone else. They said, "Do you have this in AutoCAD 2007?" Like, it is 2023.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? It wasn't the person I was working with, but it's just interesting to me that that was what they had, and that's what you sometimes it's a diverse thing, doing whether it's people in drones or any kind of other work in surveying. You just never know what the people's limitations are. And it might be totally out of left field that you have to adapt to just to meet your client's needs, including figuring out how to reinstall Windows 7 or something like that.
Sure.
All right, let's wrap it up there and start answering some questions from the audience. Do we have? If anyone has any questions they want to talk to about surveying, the future of surveying, anything that we've talked about today, or just general questions that either myself, Tim, or Daniel can answer, we'd love to hear from you and give you some feedback. Hopefully an answer. I don't know.
I mean, we'll at least make one up. Just say it really confidently.
How far does the base station work? By made up name. That was from Daniel.
That was me.
Well, I think this is a good one. A good one for Tim. So I'm gonna answer this question. It's like a base station in general, a baseline. So okay, when you talk about like a baseline, this is the distance from the base station to the rover. So everyone knows. And typically, the closer you are, the more accurate it's going to be. And the reason behind this is that you're trying to, negate all these atmospheric problems that happen from the signal from the satellite down to your base station. And what's happening is that there's basically weather, just like the clouds and rain. It's in the high atmosphere and the ionosphere. This is the biggest component. And there's, we don't see this weather, but the signal sees this weather, and it will delay. So if it's a really stormy condition up there, the baseline is going to have to get much closer, so that way you and the rover and the base are both looking to the same piece of the sky, the satellite. But if it's a calm day, these things can, expand. And I know this from like a mathematical and science perspective, but I think in practice, it's totally different. It's the same thing, but you still have to have like Tim, you still got to be able to tell someone, use that data or don't use that data. Mm-hmm. So I think me and my science mumbo jumbo jargon over here, Mr. Ivory Tower, can say whatever I want, but at the end of the day, you need to actually make a decision. Like, how do you do that? Do you have like a rule of thumb? Or are you looking at residuals?
We are. We try to set our standards in our data collectors, so that we collect data that's only a fixed solution and only a certain accuracy. But
Right.
the user has to be aware of what's going on.
I
You
see.
can be fixed and still not be very accurate.
Yep,
The
exactly.
GPS. So they just have to keep, we train them, we tell them what to look for and how to check it. I think redundant measurement is probably the easiest way to verify that something's good. So, just
Come back to a
what it
benchmark.
says. Yeah.
Yeah, you got a benchmark. Come over here, pop a shot on that, and make sure those are in agreement, and then keep walking and do the rest of your shots.
Yep.
Hey, that's good. But in practice, how far have you been able to go on these things?
Oh gosh, I mean, I think most baselines are you would want to keep them under 20 kilometers.
I agree.
It's the closer the better. I mean, you did state that. So if you want to be real accurate, then you want to be real close to the base.
Yep. Have you guys used any VRS services?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we do. We also use a lot of base rover. When we're really looking to be more accurate, it's more accurate. So we can put a base on the site and we can work close to it.
Yep.
So we do that a lot.
That's awesome. All right, next question. I've had a lot. What's that?
It's gonna be on 2 screens.
So 2 screens. Okay.
Keep reading.
I've had a lot of pushback regarding the accuracy levels achievable via drones, where surveyors are insisting drone data will not be accurate enough to be used for most measurements. Any advice or specific verbiage to overcome these arguments?
I mean, they just need to check it. It's their decision ultimately. What's your tolerance? It's if you want it to be the same as a total station, it's not going to be. Use a total station, but it's about the same as using a GPS rover. Which is what you're going to use on the bulk of the sites anyway. I mean, Tim, tell me if I'm wrong, but I mean, it just, if you're looking for under a tenth, I mean, golf ball sized error, it's going to be pretty much every point in your LiDAR scan if you got good control.
Yeah, I would say you have to just, know your accuracy requirement.
Right.
If it's like you said, if it's less than a tenth, then you need to be using some other method a lot of times. There are certain standards and accuracy standards set forth that everybody kind of adheres to. So if you know what you're doing, if you're trying to get 1 foot contours, then you know what your accuracy needs to be to produce a 1 foot contour interval map. And if you've got to spend some time checking it to make sure that map complies with that.
Yeah, totally. That makes total sense. I think just go check it. Well, I think to their question as well, they want to just have a verbal argument with the surveyor and tell them it's more accurate and ring their fist at them. Don't do that. Go out and just go out and get a data set, show them, what you've done, and kind of just show them. I think the showing is the best way of convincing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tim,
Mm-hmm.
Can you describe your LiDAR QC process in a little more detail?
Yeah, I mean, we use a lot of ground control points.
Mm-hmm.
We don't use them all to rectify the model with, but we have, a certain amount we use to correct the point cloud, a certain amount we use to check. And then once we've produced down to the DTM level, we're looking at contours. Then we have hard shots out on the ground and some kind of grid most of the time. So we'll split a site up into a grid. We'll send the guys out. We get shots. We bring those shots back in. Run report against the surface to see, in general what we got, and then we look at our residuals. If we've got something that's really bad out, then somebody goes out and looks at what it is. Why is it this bad out? Is it kudzu, or is it just and some kind of environmental factor? Is it something wrong with our data? So that's pretty much how we go through all of our LiDAR projects.
Yeah, and that's great. I mean, I hear a lot of people use a similar process. I mean, it just seems to work. It's not anything. I mean, I'm not saying it's bad, but it's not a secret thing. But it's just like a normal way of validating data. You just have a lot of points, so that's just the way you check a lot of points.
Yeah.
Same thing if you were with a GPS in the woods. If you got all of a sudden it looks like there's a berm there, but there's not a berm there, you'd go check it.
Yeah, and I think getting out and looking at it, just physically, I go out a lot. I spend a lot of time in the field looking at what we're doing, to make sure that it looks like what we're putting out.
Yeah. I mean, it's your name. I would too.
Well, and that's, to me, it's like, that's like the nature of the game, right? It's this slow, methodical approach to doing a survey, getting the data, looking through it, going and checking it, just be methodical, just apply that, methodical thought process to everything you do. And you'll, by 99 times out of 100, be perfectly good. And then that one time, well, there's one point that was a little high, and well, fuck.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta do something about it,
Yeah. Right. There's only so much you can do in this world.
Yeah, I know.
Question. I've had a lot of talk with drone companies about ASPRS standards, but as a surveyor, do you use ASPRS, or do they say, well, I'm a PLS and this is my job, so trust me, or don't? Yeah, I mean, so I'm curious about this too, because I mean, you don't have to be ASPRS certified or anything to be doing your job. Like, you're, at the end of the day, you're a PLS, and that's what you're hanging your hat on.
Mm-hmm. But we do that. That was what we set up our standards on.
Yep.
So they have a written standard, so you can go through it and read it and see if you agree with it 100%, which it is what, mappers use. So it makes sense when you start to read it. It's like, this is how you can check something, and it makes sense.
Yeah, I totally agree. The only thing I disagree on it is like, I wish they need to update it for like drone surveys, because like it's definitely written for like large scale aerial surveying. Because I think like the smallest area for like their, like, to do like 20, it's like you have to do 20 check shots for the smallest one. I think it's like 500 square kilometers, something like this.
It's a lot.
It's like the largest map that you would ever even think about making. It's like,
yeah,
okay. What about 1 acre?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, what about 10 lots in a subdivision? Okay, I'm not doing 20 GCPs. There's only 20 lots.
This is something like I've talked a lot about these ASPRS standards, or like even because there's the 3DEP, so USGS has space spec as well.
Yeah,
and it's definitely written for like, yeah, I'm mapping a whole state here.
Yeah.
And like, I think because I also would apply, these number of like check shots, and like in hard surfaces, they say like non-vegetated area, and then vegetated area, and very vegetated area. And so like, they just say like, oh, you got to get so many here. And then like, this is what your accuracy tolerance is in order to call the map accurate to this level. But anyways,
you need to be truthful with your end user and let them know what's going on.
Yeah.
They need to know that this data is in canopy, this data is wide open, this data is over the road, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's pretty good whenever you can just turn on, like, show them too. I mean, I'm talking about for somebody else. If you show them that, like in the Rock Cloud, the data set, and you just turn the trees off, it's pretty easy to correlate those contours with what was like in, shrubs or trees or.
Yeah.
What do you guys have down there? Kudzu?
Kudzu.
We have some kudzu.
Yeah, that stuff is thick, right?
You can grow a foot a day.
A foot a day
in the summertime. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So good luck cutting it down.
What is one thing that's made your job easier in the last 10 years? Daniel.
Working from home.
I think drones have made our job more fun.
Definitely
easier. Yeah. I mean, it does. It has created some, it's not hard to do, but it's like anything else. You got to know what you're doing with it. So
drones.
Hell
yeah. I like
That's drones. A good answer.
You're on the Drone Money Podcast, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Say drones.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, Tim, $20 for making sure he said.
Do different types of software help save time or add more time to projects?
Depends on the person.
I mean, some softwares, they just are what they are. I mean,
right.
it's more about the user. I think a lot of times it's understand the software, know how to use it. So
yeah, that's I mean, you can do whether it's automated processing or manual processing. You just got to find a workflow that works for you.
mhm.
And I mean, I've done them both ways. One of them is easier, but you have to feel confident in it. So you have to build that trust relationship, just like you would with anything else. And just like you have to build a trust relationship with your own abilities when you're doing it manually. Like you have to know, like, am I actually doing this right? Going through that QA process and all that stuff's kind of interesting to learn. You want to learn it internally before externally, at least. But all this kind of stuff, it depends on the person. It depends on your workflow.
You guys been using the Rock Cloud a lot. Shameless plug.
Yeah,
We do.
But you guys, I know you found it's been great because you guys are actually one of the earlier customers in Rock and Rock Cloud, and I think over the past coming up on like 2 years soon, year and a half, something like this. I don't know, Daniel.
It'd be February. I mean, you're the one that sold it to me, so
I don't remember. I think it was February. Yeah.
February. Yeah,
1 year.
2021.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2
Wow.
years.
2 years.
2 years. Yeah.
Wow. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been awesome working with you guys though, because I think the feedback that you give us and us being able to like change things up, especially in the early days, like we listened a lot to you guys and making a lot of changes. So that's been awesome, and I'm glad you guys are a heavy user and still using, and it saves you guys time and gives us a reason to live.
That's right.
Awesome, guys. Let's go to the last question. Are drones taking your job?
No.
Hold on. Let's get a good soundbite for that. Are drones taking your surveying job?
Yeah. No. We don't. I mean, it's a surveying. So when we talk about drones, we're 99% of the time talking about topographic surveying.
Yeah.
We don't. We do a lot of boundary surveying too. So
it's not finding that pin by the road.
I won't say we don't use it for boundary surveys. We do fly things that we're only doing boundary. We're not doing topo.
Yeah.
But most of the time, so we can find things like buildings and fences and lakes and things like that. We can see a total picture of what's out there on the ground.
Right.
So, but as far as like taking my job, no. I mean, it's there's somebody's got to go out there and find the pins, and property corners, and somebody's got to pull inverts on pipes, and somebody's got to, So I don't see.
Do their field notes.
Yeah, somebody's got to take the field notes. That's right. I don't see it getting to the point though where it just totally replaces a surveyor.
No,
I don't see that. I can't even imagine how a drone would go and find a boundary or find no, it's not like. No, not happening.
It's gonna fall over and get stuck in kudzu. That's what's
Yeah. I mean, honestly, though, if we had, because that'd be like walking drones. That'd be like humanoid drones.
Terminator.
So Terminator.
Terminator is real. We've got other problems.
There's other problems in society.
Yeah, we won't be on the Drone Money podcast as they walk around putting us in drone prison.
Well, awesome, guys. Let's wrap it up there. Thank you so much, Tim, for being on the show with us today. Very illuminating. Lots of knowledge in your 30-plus years of experience. And we hope to have you back on the show again. And
I appreciate you guys having me.
Absolutely.
Everybody hire more bass for your surveying needs in Atlanta.
All right, guys. So join us again on Tuesday, February 14th, with a guest expert, Noah Carr from Surefire Consulting. He'll be talking to us, I believe, about some utility line work. So it's going to be a good one. And we'll see you here next time here.